But mine's a walrus.
Nope,
I don't want
you
to.
were actually not supposed to hear anyone, but we're about to. I'm going to hit the transition button here, and we'll be right back. What is up, everyone, and welcome to our next issue of Sibling Rival-Read.
Yeah. Our first
Um,
one is the Marvel in this rotation.
yeah. Our book this week is, Anna,
House of M, my favorite.
your very, very favorite comic
Yeah.
book. Hello, everyone in the chat. We might not get to all of your comments in there, but just so you guys know, if you are watching, make sure to join us live when we record this every Monday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, no, Eastern time. I'm no longer on the West Coast. Yeah, House of M, story by Brian Michael Bendis, one of my favorite writers for comic books. One of my absolute favorite writers in comic books. And art by Olivier Coipel. I'm sure I butchered that name, but we're going with that's how it's pronounced.
But again, at least you try. I don't try.
I did try. Um, so yeah, I'm hearing myself, but that's
I
okay.
don't hear an echo. So
That's because you don't have headphones on.
whatever.
But yeah, so House of M, pretty fun book. Oh, right, I should introduce
I get to start
ourselves
doing
too.
the synopsis. Oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm Ben Pye.
Yeah.
And Anna
In.
Kin. Yep. All right. So, guys, we are going to be talking about the synopsis for House of M. Anna's going to be going through it. We'll be talking about the story as we go through. I will do my best to insert any chat comments about the story as well. But keep in mind, obviously, if you haven't read House of M yet, we highly, highly recommend that you do before watching this. But
Otherwise, there's going to be a butt ton of spoilers.
there are a lot of spoilers for House of M. And we are going to talk about WandaVision during this as well. So, if you have not watched up to episode 4 of WandaVision on Disney Plus, please, please, please keep in mind there will be spoilers for that as well. AO Ice Monkey says, "Hey, cool new graphic." Thank you.
Go you, Ben.
Some of it was actually the little tile in the middle was Ice Monkey's idea to put the information for the book that we're reading. He wanted a little more information in there. I wanted to keep it simple.
And I mean, the little paragraph blurb thing will be more. Yeah. But could you imagine how much you would have had to fit on this graphic for Robin War?
A lot.
A lot.
Luckily, I made it to where I can still edit the size of it pretty easily and change it around if I need to. So, Anna, real quick, why is House of M your favorite comic?
Okay, first of all, I'm a very reactive reader and listener and watcher, so I cry a lot in this comic. Which already gave it brownie points. I also started out with comics mainly focusing on the X-Men, and so this was a really great way to introduce me to a bunch of other heroes, and I just really, really love it. And it has a lot of like really weird plot twists and turns, and it's an extremely unique plot, and there's an extremely unique conflict that goes throughout it. It's a beautiful story that makes you sad.
Mm-hmm. And just real quickly, can we also comment on how swole Captain America is on this cover? Like he kind of looks a little ridiculous.
He doesn't look that way on my paperback.
That's true. That is true. I believe I should have that page. Hello. Calm down.
Boop, boop, boop,
There we
boop,
go.
boop. Yeah.
Oh, so that's the first issue's cover.
Oh, I love the issue cover art,
Yeah.
which I know doesn't really count as, favorite art, but I do love the issue
Almost
cover art.
sort of squarish. All right, Anna. Give us the rundown.
Okay, so how the comic starts out is it picks up after a tragic event that happens or that befalls the Avengers, which is Wanda has a mental breakdown mid-battle and kills off half of her fellow Avengers. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, right
What, at
from
this point, R.I.P. Vision, Hawkeye,
an Ant-Man.
and Ant-Man. That's right. That's right.
And so what you see at first, or like the first characters that you truly get to experience, are Wanda and Xavier. While Wanda is abusing her powers to kind of correct all the wrongs that she's done and make herself feel better, kind of like a coping mechanism. If I was a psychologist, that's what I would say, and I could be very wrong. Um, and so she's abusing her powers and distorting her own reality, which makes her have less of a grasp on what is real and what is a fiction of her, or a fiction that she constructed for herself. And so because her powers are going out of control and she can't grasp what's real and what isn't, she can't fully control the things that are happening around her. And with her power, she's a danger to everybody and everything. And Xavier gets really concerned, and Magneto is very much resigned to all the stuff that's happened to him amidst Genosha and Homo sapiens versus Homo superior and his children. And so Xavier has to consult both the X-Men and the Avengers to figure out what everybody wants to do with Wanda, which then gets into
Which,
this huge debacle of,
and
do we
this
kill her or
is
do we not?
this is a huge thing because before House of M, there was not a lot of Avengers X-Men crossover.
Mhm.
With the exception of Wolverine being an Avenger. Like that was the main, and obviously Wanda. But those were like the main connections
And
to
Pietro.
the and Pietro. Those are the main connections to the Avengers that the X-Men have. Otherwise, not a lot of not a lot of team up. Otherwise,
Mhm.
and uh, this is definitely the start of a lot of different stories that make Marvel Comics just really awesome.
Oh yeah.
That we'll eventually be reading as well, but yeah, Wanda having mental breakdown and losing her grip on reality sounds kind of like a show that came out recently on Disney Plus.
Yeah, where she has twins, and in this and in that, and
It's
yeah.
true.
Um,
It's true.
but so you see a lot of conflict amongst the X-Men and the Avengers about, to kill or not to kill. That is the question. Um, which I mean the majority is leaning towards not to kill, but they all decide that they want to go and talk to Wanda to figure out what she wants to do. And when you go back into Genosha where you see Wanda, you also see Pietro having a conniption because he wants to save his sister, and him being lightning fast was able to be essentially in both places at once, where he knows what they were talking about but doesn't know what they decided on, because he wanted to come and save his sister like a great big brother. Right, Ben?
Yep, totally what I would do. But yes, it was a lot of familial betrayal, and one of the first times that you do actually start to see Magneto admit that he was wrong.
The emotion that you get in this, especially amongst the House of Magnus, is amazing because you really do feel all of the grief in Magneto. Whether or not you like him as a character is totally besides the point. There's a lot of humanism brought into the character.
Humanity.
He, yeah, sorry, he is human. So,
Um,
um, yeah, humanity brought into this huge villain that you only associate being like the absolute worst person in the X-Men comics. And then Pietro, where he just truly gives everything to try to help his sister, and Wanda being completely mentally out of it and distraught. So good. But so they go to Genosha, and then the end of that issue leads to like a big flash. And you're kind of left to be, what just happened? They lost Xavier when they got on the island. They couldn't find anybody. And then when they finally got some place that they thought they would find Wanda and Xavier, there was just a big blinding flash. And you're woken up into an alternate reality.
just a little bit.
uh, and in the alternate reality, the only person who seems to remember right off the bat, who seems to remember everything, is Wolverine, who's had his brain messed up so many times or messed with so many times that you can't really alter it anymore to make him believe something that isn't happening. So he kind of goes crazy in this alternate reality perspective where everyone's like, wow, you have a screw loose. Or, I'm sorry, you popped a brain stitch.
Yeah. Well, and he ends up, together with Mystique as well.
Yeah.
Um, which, you know,
Who's like pretending to be Jean Grey.
right.
And yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And he jumps off of the flying helicarrier. Yeah.
Gosh. It was something for sure.
Yeah, and I love that you're treated to these really fun news articles, like tabloid articles, to kind of better understand the reality that they're in.
Mhm. No, absolutely. The news articles were a nice little touch that you could really read through and be like, "Oh."
Yeah.
Um, and Chad is also bringing up the Cyclops Emma Frost ship as well, which
Yeah.
I mean, I feel that makes sense.
It does make sense. I feel like at some point it became less of a ship and just like that's kind of how they end up anyway. So
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
just what it is. Um some like alternate realities that I thought was weird was like Nightcrawler being a shield agent.
Right, and being part of that team that
Yeah.
I had some trouble understanding that team overall, just because the art was a little vague for me to understand who was who until they really started, talking about.
Interacting with each other.
Yeah. Um,
I think my main one was what's her name? Jennifer? Jessica? Jennifer? I don't know.
Jennifer,
The black-haired
Jessica.
the black-haired
Yeah,
girl?
and I still I made a point to look at the comic again and be like, okay, who is that? And then, oh, it's Spider Woman. That's who that is.
Oh! Uh, yeah, but everybody else, like, mutant-wise, I thought was pretty clear. They made Kurt look scary.
They did make Hurt look scary. But yeah, definitely interesting that Wolverine is running a Black Ops Shield team. Shocking, right?
Yeah, and
The
then
the Red
on the
Guard.
run, he meets other characters.
Hmm.
Um So Luke Cage and Trey, who with Cloak and Dagger, and um, Iron Fist, and all those good uns.
Danny
And then
Rand.
you find out that Hawkeye is alive, but he did, but
Yeah.
he's alive.
Yeah. I'm not as big of a fan of comic book Hawkeye as I am of movie Hawkeye. Like there are a couple of interactions with Hawkeye in some comics, like in the Avenging Spider-Man comic arc. There's a really good arc where it's like Clint is like, I can't ever miss because I don't have any superpowers, and if I miss, then what's the point of me being on this team? Spider-Man witnesses him missing. Um, and was that Avengers Assemble? I thought that was Avenging Spider-Man. I'm pretty sure that was Avenging Spider-Man, but I could be wrong. Regardless,
I find that Hawkeye's character in comics really is much more similar to what his character ended up being in Endgame,
yeah.
in terms of him being, like, really lone wolf and kinda standoffish, which is what I didn't like
Uh,
so much, and so that's why I don't really gravitate towards his character. Um, but I mean,
but
you
you know,
really
he
felt
had
for him throughout this entire because everyone's telling him that he should not be alive,
right.
and that his one of his closest friends that he considered family was the one who killed him, and it's so sad.
It is sad. It is definitely a very sad um, story, just because of the amount of trust that they have to have within each other is heartbreaking when something bad like that happens.
Yeah. Um, and from when you see Hawkeye again, you find out that there's a little girl or a 13-year-old girl something who has the ability to restore all of these alternate reality memories from
Memories,
the original timeline type of a thing to everybody. Um, and so knowing that, Wolverine directs everybody to go get Emma Frost, who can help facilitate this little girl's powers. And the green light was a cool continued motif throughout the entire book.
definitely, absolutely. Uh,
It'd
and
be such a good movie.
it would be a really good movie, but with what they're doing, obviously it's going to be very different.
We, but I mean, I'm not really convinced that. I think that how WandaVision is more of like a nod to House of M than it is gonna be a House of M.
Anna, the Doctor Strange movie is literally called like Journey Through the Multiverse.
I know,
Okay.
but that's the movie. I think that, like, I don't think the show is gonna be
No, I
the
think
House
the
of M story arc.
no, I think the show is all of the lead up to like the
Her
essentially
going,
the lead up to House of M. Like I think this is her mental breakdown,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, such a good. Okay. Um, but yeah, so then they restore Emma's memories and Cyclops' memories, and Wolverine has realized that the life that they are given is their greatest desires, or like everything that they wanted to ever happen to them to create the perfect utopia for each individual is essentially what they were given. So that's why Wolverine remembers everything from his past. That's why Emma is with Cyclops in some, or and Cyclops is with Emma in some manner. Of course, Emma's like, I don't understand why I'm with you. If this is your utopia, you should be with Jane, or not
Yeah.
Jane,
Yeah, Gene.
Jean. Yeah, but I said Jane.
Oh, okay. I heard
Yeah,
but yeah, and the point of it was, you know, I'm making this world where you have everything you want so you won't come after us
hmm
kind of thing.
in a world where none of the bad that happened in the other reality would happen. because they're essentially thinking that they can take away all of that crime, or not all of the crime, but the crime that led to Hawkeye dying, led to their friend's death.
Mhm.
And then they start following and tracking down characters to bring their memories back so they can all face this. And their first stop is poor Peter Parker.
Let me tell you right now, that whole scene is the most, like, in a two-panel thing, this right here is just the absolute most heartbreaking to me. Like, all of these things, it's like, oh, you see Peter Parker with Gwen Stacy, who
And Uncle Ben is alive.
Uncle
And
Ben is alive, and they have a kid, and I don't like that he's bald, but he's bald. Um,
I didn't understand why he was bald. It's also an inconsistency because earlier in the issue, when you see him for like a hot second, he has hair.
yeah, but not in the Wonder World.
Uh, Pretty sure in the Wanda world, when you first see people, he has hair.
Okay, maybe he
I
shaved it
could-
in between panels, but it is just absolutely heartbreaking to see them restore Peter's memories, and then like
And
I
then you
know we're
see,
getting ahead, but like the end where he
yeah,
just wants to forget that this whole alternate world existed. It's just oh,
yeah. And like this panel on the next page where you see him going like, "Oh no, Uncle Ben," and you see the tears in his eyes.
yeah. Um, it's like you
Everything
just see
super
him
heartbreaking.
remembering everything, and
And like because of how emotionally driven these panels are, if you really, really enjoyed them, I 100% recommend the Spider-Man House of M standalone.
yeah, where
So
you
good. You will totally cry, but so good.
it really is absolutely amazing, and I cannot recommend it enough. Obviously, me being the Spider-Man fanboy that I am, I cannot recommend it enough.
That was just so good. And even when he is kind of like okay with the future that he's going back to, knowing that he does love Mary Jane,
Mhm.
the success that Mary Jane has in this reality is even more pain inducing because he's like, great, so the person I'm actually married to and having a good life with has a better life without me.
Yeah.
Ah,
Well,
100%
we're gonna
not
have to read
recommend.
Spider-Man one day more. See, I think that might be my pick for next month. Is that? Uh, but yeah, like God, I love Spider-Man so much, and it's like even in this perfect world, Peter seems to just lose so much
Yeah.
and continue to prove that he is the unluckiest person in the world.
I very much feel like he definitely got the shortest end of the stick. I mean, unless except for Hawkeye, who's dead. There's
Yeah, absolutely. But I
there is
mean,
that.
and I think part of that is like obviously like every Marvel hero has lost a lot, but how many heroes have lost as much as Peter has lost?
Yeah, and I mean, none of the heroes who have lost as much gained that much in this alternate reality.
Yeah. So it's just it's one of those things that's like you sit there and you look at it and you're like, "Oh, Pete, I'm so sorry, man. I hate this for you. I really do."
I hate that he was the first one they went to.
Yeah.
Like,
Especially since you then like a few pages later, you see them go um to see Captain America. And they're like, "Oh, just let him be." It's like
well, he couldn't be helpful. He's a little old to be
I,
helpful.
I know, but
Huh.
You know, what did Spider-Man actually do in that fight?
He fought, which was
Yeah,
more than Captain America could have done.
they could have left him alone. Could have left it
Um,
alone.
and I mean, like, I didn't feel as bad for Captain America because, I
No,
mean,
oh, no, not at all.
and I don't know if I really would have, even if he learned everything, because the only thing that happened to him is he's old now. He lived his life.
He didn't get frozen.
He did not get frozen.
Yeah.
You don't really know if he ended up with Peggy in this,
Yeah, but you do
but
figure that since he wasn't frozen, that he didn't learn
he
how to let
did.
it go.
I
Da
feel
da
like
da 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 da.
someone should laugh, but that someone is not gonna be me.
Whatever.
Alrighty then. So after collecting, the bigger group or the biggest group that they could, they travel to Genosha to crash a party, essentially. And they're looking
Yeah.
for Professor X, and they are under the assumption that Magneto, it's all Magneto's fault for manipulating Wanda, and they somehow used Xavier, and they need to get Xavier back, and they need to get Wanda to fix it. And then, which also causes drama because then they're like, but do we fix it? Do we not fix it? Can we fix it? Can we not fix it?
Hmm.
What happens? Which I
God.
enjoyed that conversation because I thought everybody had a very interesting opinion and take.
This robe that Magneto's wearing in this page though, Anna,
Yeah.
it just seems a little excessive.
I love House of Magnus costumes in this. They're gorgeous.
But did it
It's
need
a
to
little
be?
long,
Yeah, okay. That's what I
but he
needed to
can
hear.
fly, Brett. But he can
Chat is
fly,
saying,
man.
"Look at that drip on Swagnito."
But he can fly. Imagine how beautiful it would be up in the wind.
That's fair. Is it made out of metal so he can like make it like really like flippy?
No.
Okay. Well,
His normal cape's not made out of metal.
I know. I was just
No,
I
you're being
was
silly.
I'm being silly. Yes. That was my what I was
Which,
attempting to do.
really quickly, while we're talking about wardrobe silliness, the rogue dress, there's no way on earth that would function without any, like, tape.
You
There would be
mean
so
the
much
storm
tape.
dress?
I said rogue. Yes, I meant
Yes.
the storm dress with the Wakanda fabric. There's no way that would function. It
Yeah.
would not only bunch when she's summoning the elements, it would do a lot more. Goodness.
Now you're making me go all the way back.
I was just saying as, like, a small little thingy. I didn't mean for you to go all the way back.
um but yeah, so they go to Genosha and there's this big event happening with a bunch of leaders of the world. Here we go. Here is I think there's nothing wrong.
Men.
Um but yeah. So she's a goddess and a queen, so it's fine, Anna. Gosh. That's what that's what Monkey is saying. Um
Also, really love the stylist's haircut. That's what you'll see me rocking next time.
Perfect. Um, but yeah, so it's a bunch of leaders of this world. So yeah,
Rogue, who's Queen of Kenya.
Anna,
Dang
you did it again.
it! Storm, Queen of Kenya.
People are
I'm
gonna
so
think you don't know comic books at
I
all
know,
in
I'm
our
really
comic
bad
book
with
show.
names. Oh my goodness. I'm like mom in all of our names. Okay. Storm is the Queen of Kenya, and then you still have T'Challa, who's the King of Wakanda. You see Victor Von Doom. You see I
Prince
can't say
Namor.
his name. Yeah, thank you. I was like, I can't say his name. Of Atlantis. All of them have great outfits from this costumer's perspective.
Yeah,
Just
they
like
they did do really well. I liked Yeah, Namor's looks really cool, even though it's like such a small thing that
Little
you
panel,
see.
yeah.
Uh,
I would love to make the Wanda and Lorna headdresses. They're so pretty.
yeah,
What would I do?
Lorna. I always forget Polaris's name.
I love her name. I think it's cute or pretty.
Um,
Juvenile.
but yeah, I dig it. And then you've got the twins who
Look
look
creepy.
like who look like they're from Umbrella Academy.
They do look like they're from Umbrella Academy. 100%.
Hmm.
Um, but so, they crash this party, which also just the detail in the Sentinels is amazing
The
and
Sentinels are
very regal.
beautiful in this. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so party crashers create a fight, and Ty, who is the cloak, um, takes Layla? Lila? The girl who can,
Lila, yeah.
make everybody remember the other timeline or the actual reality, goes with Miss Frost to find um Xavier, and instead they find this like beautiful garden tombstone that's dedicated to Professor X, in which they find that he's not actually buried there, so everything's hunky dory, except they don't know where
Hunky
Xavier
dory.
is.
Yep.
Um and amongst this fight also, you see Pietro have like a breakdown because he's trying to save Wanda, who in this reality is the only human uh offspring of Magneto. She's supposed to not have any powers, which is a joke.
Hmm.
Um, and so Pietro sees his sister like dissolve in front of him and goes crazy and joins the fight. And that at that point is when Doctor Strange, in his
Astral
other,
form.
yeah, uh goes to talk to Wanda and try to convince her to put everything back and figure out what happened.
Oh,
And you
Layla.
see,
It wasn't Lila, sorry. You were right.
I was between both of
I
those
know, I
names.
know. I was correcting myself, not you.
Okay. Um, who goes to visit the Wanda and the children, in which you find out that the children are super bratty.
Yeah.
Even though they're made up, they're super bratty children. Um, and there's this really cool pixelization of her powers that kind of depicts the actual happenings of what occurred and who convinced whom of what, and the gut-wrenching argument again with
Yeah.
Magneto and Pietro, and then Wanda kind of just giving in to her depression and her want for death, but lack of desire for suicide, and then Pietro convincing her that they can make life so much better if they give everybody they love the perfect ending.
Yeah. And
And
I
then like
mean, it's the perfect like villain thing where like not to say that Pietro's a villain here, but I mean he is.
he became desperate. I don't
But well,
I
and I
don't
mean,
know
I
that he was
think
even a villain because it didn't have ill will towards anybody.
but you think about it, the best villains are the ones that they make you connect to. The ones that
Yeah.
they make you like understand why they're doing what they're doing. It's like, yeah, if this were, you know, me or and either you, well, more likely Sarah. Um yeah, I mean, I can't say that my brain probably wouldn't go the same way. Like I'd rather not have my family
Rather
die.
save Sarah than me. That's fine.
Well, I mean, when Sarah makes a perfect world, I guess you'll probably be in
Oh, thanks.
it.
Thanks.
But no, like it's you sympathize with him. Like
You really do. There's so much emotion that gets portrayed in these that you can't help but feel for even the characters that you're not a huge fan of. I mean,
right.
like, look at Wanda's expressions of just complete void,
Yeah.
emotionless void.
Hmm.
In the last page, it was so bad, and then all of Pietro's desperation and Magneto's kind of withdrawal. It's all so gut-wrenching.
It it really is, and
Mhm.
it's like, and you don't even blame her for.
No, but Hawkeye does,
Oh yeah, oh
and then he
yeah,
got pieced apart.
yep,
Pieced apart. Apparently by the children. Not actually by the children, it was by her because she's like, "I thought he was gonna hurt them," but I mean, I blame the children because they look creepy.
yeah, yeah. I agree.
Super creepy. Um,
And
and
then
then
they make
Magneto learns
Magneto.
the truth,
Yeah.
and he goes angry.
Oh my God! Talk about General Swagnito. Like this panel right here, like of him coming out of the debris is like, oh,
Yeah. Which not gonna lie, like, when I read this for the very, very first time, I was kind of like, "Oh, why is Magneto so mad? What
well,
did he expect from his children?"
well, I mean, yeah, I guess, but he didn't even. You saw how conflicted he was before House of M World
Yeah.
about everything.
He even spends and then the next panel, what he does to Pietro, because Frost had, heard everything that was happening telepathically with Doctor Strange, so she knew that it was Pietro, and by her knowing that, when Magneto gained all of his memories, he then also learned that it was Pietro because everybody thought it was him, and he was like, "Well, it wasn't me," which only leaves one person.
Yep.
But I mean, even in the very beginning, he was saying how like he lost his children, he lost the war, and it wasn't worth it, and all of this and that. And then he squashes his son
Yeah.
like a bug.
Yep.
And then Wanda goes crazy again, which I
Shocking.
get.
Yeah.
Also, I really love this like power panel where she makes his face come back.
Oh, this one? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then,
Then she just like loses it. And her monologue, like tirade against Magneto, also makes me cry.
oh, so well written. And this is why I truly believe that Brian Michael Bendis is one of the greatest comic book writers of our time. Like he did that monologue so well, and he did this story so well.
Yeah. My favorite transition though is between the page that you're on right now and the page before that. Because I mean, even when you're reading it in your head, it goes from all of this loud, loud chaos. And then at the very last panel, everything is just completely silent and or at least that's how I see it. And then in the next panel, when it's absolutely gorgeous and you know that there's so much chaos going around, everything feels so silent.
Yeah.
And it is beautiful.
It's it is an incredibly well done book. Um,
Very cinematic.
yes, absolutely. And then we get to
Our
like,
normal reality again, where there are no more mutants.
yeah, the big three words that change the Marvel universe for what was when did this one come out versus Avengers versus X-Men? So this came out in
Um,
2005.
and Avengers
Um,
versus X-Men is relatively soon after this.
is it? Is it really?
Well,
No.
Avengers
No, no,
versus
because
X-Men
Avengers versus X-Men was while I was in
Avengers versus
California.
X-Men is all about the so like at the very very end of the comic, which is why I don't feel like I'm giving anything away, you see the Phoenix flame in outer space.
Yeah.
Avengers versus X-Men is featuring Phoenix
Yeah. So
in a
Avengers
different
vs.
way.
X-Men though came out in April of
You're quiet to
2012.
me.
What? Hello? No. Okay. Audio's coming
Nope.
through here. Oh, sorry. I accidentally
There you
muted
go.
myself there.
Okay. Nope.
So Avengers vs. X-Men came out in 2012. This came out in 2005.
Wow.
So
Is that much of a time
this
gap?
is 7 years
It's
of the
crazy.
Marvel universe being essentially without mutants.
Wow, I feel very spoiled. And just in relation to like when I read them all, very spoiled.
Yeah.
I did not have to wait 7 years.
No.
I did have to wait
I read
7
this
years.
about a year after it came out. Um I wasn't reading a whole lot in the way of
Okay.
X-Men comics though. And just this world, like you go from I can't imagine having read this live when it came out and
Mhm.
seeing no more mutants and not knowing what the next issue was going to be. Like, does that mean no more X-Men at all? Like, what's going to happen? And what ends up happening is like all the people are still there. It's just essentially the mutant gene
Mutant gene
was,
disappeared.
yeah, and but it didn't disappear from everyone.
No, it didn't, which is what confused me because it wasn't even that everybody who realized and was protected by Frost who could remember everything, they weren't the only mutants that had their powers still. There were still some in the reality. So I was like, why did they still have it?
Right. And yeah,
And
it is,
Bobby lost his powers
which is so
for 7 years.
yep. Yeah.
Dang.
Well, I mean, at least for someone like Bobby, his powers had taken over to a point where he couldn't turn like back into his human form. So when you see Bobby walk out
Yeah.
as like the human version of himself, like
Yeah.
the progression of Bobby was really interesting because he's an OG X-Men. Uh, and he would turn himself into a snowman essentially, and then learned how to make his form harder by turning
Nice.
into the solid ice, and then
Yeah.
just couldn't do that anymore. And then, of course, them freaking out that if there are no more mutants, Wolverine being out there without his mutation uh, would absolutely kill him. Because, I don't think the human body would be like, hey, yeah, let's be coated in metal. Why not?
Well, no, and Cyborg and and Nightcrawler were immediately like, "Oh, no."
And by cyborg, she means Cyclops.
Dang it! It's literally only when I have this stupid camera on that I can't say anything correctly. It's pressure. That's why I'm backstage. I'm not an actor. I don't remember lines. I don't do this. This is
um,
ridiculous. I seem stupid, which is fine.
and then this is one of my favorite panels. Like we
When
talked
he
about
remembers
it.
everything.
We talked about it when we did Coming Home for Spider-Man, and just the amount of emotion that art can put into someone.
Mhm.
Um, and Olivier Coipel did a phenomenal job here. I know it wasn't just Olivier that did the art. He did the penciling and I think some of the coloring, but like this
I have
is
the sketchbook issue.
it,
I love
it's
this
it's
comic.
just look at the emotion in Wolverine's eyes here. Like
Yeah.
take all the rest of his face away. Just look at the eyes and be like, yeah, that's rough, buddy.
I fe
I'm gonna slip it into every issue of Rival-Read.
I feel like I need to come up with a really good comeback. I'm not very good at those when I'm put on the spot, as we all know.
And then of course Emma looking at the world using Cerebra, and
Yeah,
like you see like there are like 4 dots, 5 dots total in
that you
Australia.
see, yeah.
Yeah.
Something that I did really enjoy also, though, about them coming back is you saw how gut-wrenching it was, not only for the mutants and the X-Men, which, I mean, obviously way more so, you see the students, like, crying and asking if they're still an X-Men um, and all this and that, but, I mean, even at Avengers Tower, all of them are awestruck and kind of like, "I don't know what to do." I really, really enjoyed the news, like, interview with, who was it? At the very, very end when he was talking about, like, if you really think about it, mutants were the next form of evolution,
Yeah.
and the amount of mutants that had certain, um, environmental powers
I
that would
think that was
affect our
I think that was
ecosystem.
Hank Pym, wasn't it?
Yeah, that sounds right. Um, and that lead into the Phoenix Flame in outer space, I thought was beautifully done, which I appreciate way more now that I'm an adult who does not mind, you know, and who actually watches the news and all of that stuff, versus a kid when I was reading it, and I go, "This is so boring." It's science speak, but I really good content.
It
It's so good,
absolutely.
so good. Best story. Best story for me in a comic book that I have found.
No, like it is a very it's a strong contender for my favorite, for sure. And I think one of the interesting things about this, from a for a new reader, is this is definitely a book. Like if you jump into it, there are going to be things that you're confused about. There are going to be characters that you probably don't know anything about. Um, but uh, at the very base of it, you learn a lot about a lot of the characters and what their motivations are, what their needs are here.
And I mean, your introduction to minor characters is, I think, really well done, or minor characters, but characters that aren't as
Super
mainstream
mainstream.
or followed. Yeah,
Yeah.
like Wonder Man and
Yeah. Um it's good. It's it's interesting. I think the people who really want to get into X-Men, I would almost say a good starting point.
I think so. I think though that it's a good starting point for almost any hero, like to go off from here forward almost, not necessarily any of them, but
Yeah.
for a good majority, like I don't feel, I mean, it's a great one for Hawkeye because I mean, you're left to kind of assume in this comic at the end that Hawkeye came back to this reality.
Oh yeah, because of
The news
his costume.
article and his costume
Mm-hmm.
and like the smile for Cap on Captain America's face. Um Yeah, so I mean, I would argue that it's a great one for him. I think that it gives you a lot of Spider-Man's backstory to kind of jump you in.
I disagree.
You don't think
Like
it gives enough backstory?
I think if you know Spider-Man's backstory, it gives a lot of it. But if you're getting into this and you look at it, like I think the average reader is going to see the blonde and well, I mean maybe if they've seen the
There
Amazing
are movies
Spider-Man,
now.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
but
like, I mean, there are movies now that you know Gwen Stacy. Everybody now at least has some basic knowledge on who Gwen Stacy is because of the Amazing Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, but because they didn't continue after that, you don't really see what that does to Spider-Man.
No, but I'm more so just saying, like, with reading this,
Hmm.
I think that you have a better understanding of how much was taken from him, which you won't get in every issue of Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Um, I think that our last Spider-Man comic is a much better, like, starting point, but I don't think that this one's a bad one. Um,
Spider-Man depressed for like 2 weeks after the clock tower in the movie. That's what Knock Plays says in chat. Um, and yeah, that's accurate. Then everything was fine. Yep. Then he was fighting the rhino, I believe, at the end of that, right? I think. It's been a long time since
um,
I've seen that movie.
I
Um,
also think that it's a fun introduction, not necessarily starting off point, but a fun introduction to few superheroes that make you want to read more about them. Not necessarily picking up right after this comic, just in general.
but
Like
like
if
Cloak
you
and Dagger.
like Cloak and Dagger.
Hmm.
Cloak is always really freaking awesome whenever you see him in
Oh
comics
yeah.
because his
Like
art and his power is just beautiful. Um, Doctor Strange.
yeah.
Um,
We gotta find some good Doctor Strange books to read.
we do, we do, because he seems like a really cool character. I haven't read many like of his standalones. I've read single issue standalones, but yeah, yeah,
Comic versus movie Doctor is so different. Yeah, I that much I do know. But like just my interactions with Doctor Strange in comics that I know, I want more. And this is like this book really gets me interested in him as well as being, you know, who he is and
yeah.
what he can do around Wanda. Um,
Luke Cage is also an interesting character in here because I mean I have read zero Luke Cage and he was actually like quite a prominent character in this comic.
he was. He still just doesn't interest me that much.
He's not. I
But
don't. I don't think he interests me so much to like read full volumes, but to read like one or two every now and then, especially with I'm assuming the Jessica that he is married to is Jessica Jones.
yeah,
Um, like I'd be interested to know how their stories ended up intertwining because I also haven't watched the show.
gotcha. Um, let's talk favorite panels. You and I have the same favorite panels, essentially.
Yeah, and I mean my favorite panel was for the reason that I said, just like the chaos within it that also kind of evokes silence, like complete silence.
And look at the tears, like
The
the one
tears,
dripping off the nose, and just like
the glowing. The artist really did have a extreme talent in emotion.
yeah,
Whether or not you're a fan of the art or like if you think that the art was absolutely exceptional, the facial expressions were insane.
yeah,
And the ability to show all of those emotions. So sad.
yeah. It was this panel and this series of 3 pages. The
Yeah.
monologue from Wanda, the 3 words that changed the Marvel universe for 7 years.
I can't believe that was 7 years.
Yeah, and then
Crazy.
this, like, oh
Even that, I'm trying to think of, like, a movie. I know that it's a very popular kinda thing that, sound mixers do, but where it's absolute silence, and when a explosion goes, it's like fractured sounds that are coming back at you, and that's exactly what I hear when I just look at the picture,
no,
and it's
it's like when the teacher says, "Johnny, you can't hear a picture," and then you look at this and you're like, "But I hear this." Um, but yeah, and we've talked about a lot of honorable mention pages throughout this, and we are already approaching an hour,
Mhm.
and we do need to bring in some of our WandaVision talk as
Yeah.
well.
And I mean,
Um,
all of mine I kind of said and touched on, and it was all mostly just facial expressions that were
it,
coming in because they were all one-offs.
yeah. So,
So pretty.
starting with the story,
Are we
what's
rating?
it's rating time.
You start with the story. I start with art.
Yep, that's true. Story wise, okay. So I'm gonna give you two scores. Okay, I'm gonna give you two
Okay.
scores. One of them is the person who has read some comics. Even
Okay.
just like if you've read, let's say, one trade paperback of three different Marvel heroes, this book is a 10 out of 10. If this is your first Marvel book and you've seen the movies and you know some of the characters and you know what you're looking at, I think I still give it a 10 out of 10 on that. But if you, well, no, you know what? I'm just gonna say story is a 10 out of 10. Like absolutely 100% story. It it's in
I
my
was
top.
interested
It's
where
in
you
my
were trying
top
to even
five. It's in
bump
my
it
top
down.
five favorites comic book stories. Um, like every time I don't read it super often, but every time I go back to it, I'm just like, oh God. Imagine if this was the first comic book I ever read.
This is though the go-to comic that I recommend to people who are trying to get into comics
Yeah, this
for the
is
Marvel universe. So like
this is one
mom,
of the few comic books that we've been able to convince mom and dad to actually sit and read a comic book.
I don't think dad has read it. But
I think
yes,
dad's read
mom
it,
has
no?
read it. Maybe? Oh, maybe he has. No, maybe he has. So yeah, mom and dad. Um, I got some
Which
of my
mom is a
college
lot more
roommates,
impressive. The fact that we got her to read it. And
and the fact that she still raves about it and wants to reread it after I talked to her yesterday.
I mean, this is where I give Comixology a huge shout out. Because if you've never read a comic book, Comixology is by and far the best way to get into comics. Like
Yeah,
I'm always going to say like
with the
read
guided
on
viewing.
Comixology and then go buy the physical like issues of the ones that you really like. But guided view on Comixology has been amazing for I don't know how long has Comixology been around at this point.
It's only sad that they don't follow through then with the manga.
Yeah, but I mean the technology there is different and they just added manga, so I'm gonna
Give
cut
them
them
a
some slack.
leeway.
Yeah. Um but
But I got
real
college
quick,
roommates.
I'll click on
It.
the guided view button for you guys just to kind of show you what we're looking at. So guided view, it shows you what to read. You know, you look and you get a feel for each panel, and then typically at the end they show a full page. Nope, they don't. Um,
It depends on if it branches over to like a multi-page thing.
oh,
So like in a
true.
panel that stretches into the next page, it'll typically give you the full page view at the end.
Right. And in there, obviously, oh gosh, what page is it? It's going to be page 100. Um, so a page like this, where there's some text going on throughout it, you might not necessarily know what to read, so you use guided view. And is that really okay?
No, no,
So,
no, it keeps going.
and it essentially shows you what you want to read next. So I'm a huge fan of the guided view if you have never read a comic before. Guided view is a bit stinky though. Sometimes it is. But again, for a new comic book reader, I think guided view incredibly beneficial.
Yeah, it does take me longer to read it when it's guided view, but that's mostly because then I'm like, okay, but now I need to see the entire page, especially for like the Wanda panel. Like if you would went panel by panel for that, you don't really grasp how awe-striking it is. Awestruck, awe
Yeah.
is unless you kind of see the full page. So I will give it that. Like takes me a little bit longer when I'm reading guided view, but totally worth it.
Oh, and
Totally worth
Knock
it.
Plays is wondering what site I'm using for these comics. This is Comixology, Comixology.com, um, which is my favorite way to read comics. And Comixology Unlimited, there's a lot of free comics, including House of M. House of M is included on the Comixology Unlimited subscription.
And Comixology Unlimited is the same as Kindle Unlimited, I have learned. If you have an Amazon account and you have Kindle Unlimited, then those books that are on Comixology for Unlimited is the same.
Oh,
Just as like
interesting.
a fun fact, because you and I argued about that. Well, not argued. I asked you about that, and you thought it was a no, but it is a yay.
I thought it was too, but I guess sometimes I'm wrong.
Often.
So what's your story rating?
Okay, so mine, because it's my go-to recommendation for like anybody and everybody, even if they're a normal comic, like an avid comic reader or a newbie, and I have gotten such good feedback from recommending it to people, and it's one of my favorites. I give it a 10 out of 10, which sounds biased, but I am basing it off of people that I have had read it
Yeah,
after like I recommend it. So feel like it's justified.
for sure. I agree with you. I don't think I'm giving it a 10 out of 10 as well, and I do not think that that is an unreasonable score for it.
Mhm. I also just love these, like I know they don't count as for the art, but I love those watercolor covers.
Emma Frost looks really odd in this.
She's very booby.
Yeah? It looks like she got Captain America's chest from the first one.
It does. It does. Ah, that's funny. Okay, so then art. Um,
Yep.
so art overall, I will say, like, the art style for me, it make me doesn't make my jaw drop or anything like that. It's truly just the amount of emotion that they portrayed through the facial expressions and how captivating both the story and those emotions conveyed were. So, I mean, for that reason alone, I think that the art was amazing. Again, it's not like it's my favorite art style because it's kind of just generic comic book art,
Okay, Anna, what's
but
the
it's
number? Come
generic
on.
comic book
Come
art.
on.
What?
What's the number? What's the number?
What number? Oh, sorry. I'll give it I'm like between an 8 or a 9, but I think I'll go 8.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's because it is what you expect comic book art to be, just with way more emotion. Maybe I'll give it a 9.
Okay.
I'll give it an 8.5.
You'll give
You're
it
welcome,
an
Ben.
8.5. Alrighty.
I know you hate the decimals.
I do, but you know what? You're allowed to give them whatever you want, I guess. Um, so we've talked about this before, in that our ways of rating art is going to be different.
Mhm,
Like there's going to be a lot of for you, it's going to be style and substance.
mhm.
For me, while style does play into it, substance plays into it a lot more greatly for me.
For me, it did with this one.
And like the reasons that you were saying, the amount of emotion that is portrayed in all of this is just absolutely phenomenal. And for that reason, I do give it I'll give it a 9 out of 10.
Yeah. I think I was, like, mostly between 8 and a 9 because I also being able to hear a picture is an art on its own.
Oh yeah.
That lends itself to be higher, which is why I settled with 8.5 because I feel like 8 isn't
Whoa,
enough.
whoa, 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 whoa. Did you see this? 50th anniversary of Captain America's Walk on the Moon celebrated.
I did not. I don't think I have that because I read this one as my paper. Oh, no, it's totally in the back, and I just did not read it.
Oh my god. Okay.
I did not read
But I guess
those
that
at
makes
the
sense
back.
considering he was a lot younger at that point.
True.
But yeah.
Still old, but true.
And then overall score for me. I think I'm still going to give overall this book a 10.
I feel like I can't give it a 10 because I gave it an 8.5. So it would have to be a 9. But I think it deserves a 10. I just think I have to give it a 9.
All right. So
And it's my
overall,
favorite comic.
definitely a book that you should read. If you want to get into comics, if you've been reading comics, this is one to read. 100%.
Yes. See, I have this book
Yeah, I know.
with all the sketch art. I got
Um,
it on my last visit when you still lived in California.
oh yeah, I remember that I lived in California. No, I'm kidding. So, obviously, I mentioned that we're going to discuss some WandaVision as well. So, if you're not caught up on WandaVision, this is a good point to stop for now and come back later. If you are stopping and coming back later, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button for me. Leave a comment down below. Let us know what your favorite part of this book is. Um,
And if you agree or disagree with our scoring, and why.
Oh, knock brings up a good point. I should make a
Hmm.
Google sheet with all the comics we read, and the scores that we give them, and then I can post that in the Discord channel or the Discord server, and people can kind of look at it there. I dig that. I like that a lot, Knock. Thank you for that suggestion. Um, Now I need to make a spreadsheet. Spreadsheet of scores. Plus, that would make it easier when we do our recap episode, and I'm trying to figure out what the scores
The
are.
score is.
Yeah. Um,
I have a strong start, though.
you do have a strong start, and
Makes up for last time.
I'm a little worried. I'm a little worried. Um, so one of the things that, and we didn't plan it this way at all, um, but it was one of those things that it ended up being very timely because a big character in House of M is Wanda Maximoff, um, who is a main character in the uh, Disney Plus series
WandaVision?
WandaVision. Yeah,
Double one?
I know, right? Um,
Crazy.
so one of the things I did want to say is I really, especially with the most recent episode,
Episode.
um, I'm getting I'm getting a lot of House of M vibes. I know at the beginning you were saying you weren't really feeling like this was House of M. I feel like this
But
is.
I was saying, though, that I thought that it could be, because when I first watched it, um, I thought that she was gonna end up being the one manipulating everything to some degree, like House of M.
Uh,
Just to clarify what I meant.
yeah, no, I know. Nox says I'm no longer confused after the last episode. Well, less confused. Um, and there were definitely some things that because I've read comics for so long that I was following on. Like I saw
Mhm.
the sword symbol and I'm like, oh my gosh, is this going to be the introduction of sword? And sure as shit, when we get to episode 4, there's sword. Um,
Oh, I loved the costume, like, period change from the hazmat suit to the
yeah,
beekeeper suit. That was gorgeous, and the rope turning into the jump rope was
yeah.
also gorgeous.
Some really, really cool things. And the way they filmed it is just really cool. How each episode is a decade.
Yeah.
And I'm here for it. But here you, especially after seeing, I mean, you see a little bit of it in each episode. You see like things slipping through the cracks, and you see how much Wanda is trying to keep it together. And yes,
Mhm.
Knock, the most recent episode that we watched was the 70s. Episode one was 50s, two was 60s, three was 70s.
And 4 was modern.
Yep, I mean,
And
four was
well,
a
actually, was
recap.
4 was all of them and then
Yeah.
modern? Yeah.
Um,
Also, 100% would have been Darcy, where she was, like, looking uh, at the show and started crying. "Ah, twin! Didn't see that twist." Although I did see that twist
yeah.
because she had
Oh,
twins in House
and
of
House of
M,
M,
so
and she is a
yeah.
twin.
Yeah, and she is a twin.
And, gosh, and I feel like this is all just it's building up to the next Spider-Man movie and the next Doctor Strange movie.
Which would be amazing! Although Hawkeye can't die because he's getting a TV show.
I mean, there could be when going through the multiverse, it would not surprise me if there was a
Valid.
dead Hawkeye. Yeah,
Valid.
Hawkeye is getting a TV show. Knock plays, um, and Kate Bishop's going to be in it. His protege, played by Haley Steinfeld. So
I'm also
that'll be.
interested what the franchise is gonna do with the rest of the X-Men.
I so again so this is so last week. Anna, remember how we were talking about how I was like, I think Wanda is going to be like the creation of the X-Men or of
Yeah,
mutants
yeah.
in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
So, like, a reverse no mutants?
Yeah, a
No more
reverse no
mutants?
more mutants. And
Yeah.
I guess I never talked about it with Lee, but she sent me an article of someone just talking about all of these things of about why they think Wanda's going to be the creation of mutants, and I'm like,
I
damn it!
literally just said it.
If you were a person that was watching the episode last week, I want credit.
Oh, man.
I want like a retweet.
That's also only if you were live when you said that, and that wasn't you and I talking after the fact.
Pretty sure it was while we were live. We yeah. Regardless, I think this is building up to a very House of M-esque storyline.
Storyline.
Mhm.
I am not gonna lie, like, even if it ends with her creating the mutants, I'm gonna be slightly upset only because of how absolutely gut-wrenching and, like, beautifully done the ending was. So, like, as amazing and
Oh,
as applicable as it would be for her to create the mutants, her taking them away was just soul-crushing.
right. But this is a world where there are none already.
Correct.
So you can't take that yet. And
No, I
I
agree, I
believe
totally agree, I'm
I
just
believe in Kevin Feige and his ability to find someone who can make the creation of mutants maybe not like gut wrenching, but powerful.
Mhm. Yeah. I do think it can be done
Hmm.
powerfully, it's just there was
It'll
so
be
much
different.
crying in this, so you gotta have a good cry at the end.
Yeah,
Goodness.
absolutely. Absolutely.
I also about, WandaVision, I really liked them bringing back Darcy's character
Oh
and,
yeah. And
um
Agent Wu, yeah. I like the little nod to the magic trick that
Yeah, I thought that was
that
that was
Ant-Man
funny.
teaches him.
That Sarah sent us a GIF of the other day.
Knock Plays asks, if Wanda brings in mutants, how will they retcon Magneto being her dad? Well, fun fact, in the comics, Magneto isn't really her dad. He just takes on he thinks they're his children.
Dun dun dun.
That is a twist for another time, Knock.
It's also going to be the great if they get to bring back Pietro.
Yeah.
Not saying that like I think strongly if they will or if they won't. He was a fun character when they had him for like, the 15 minutes of Age of Ultron.
Well, the thing is, he was also in Days of Future Past at the same time. Like the character, not the actor.
Yeah.
So it would have been a
Yeah.
little bit
It's true.
confusing there.
And I mean his character in Days of Future Past was hilarious.
Yeah, it was. But how otherwise, how are you liking WandaVision so far?
I'm enjoying it. I'm much more interested to know how it's going to continue
So we're at the
and
halfway
see how
point. I think it's
everything.
8 episodes for WandaVision.
I have no idea. I was actually wondering that the other day. I will though say that the agent that was like, "Oh, didn't he die in Age of Ult in like with Ultron?" She could have covered her tracks so much better than she did. She took no improv classes in high school.
Well, no. Double checking. Oh, no, it's 9 episodes. We're still at about the halfway mark.
So I'm excited to see how they continue the story. I'm pretty positive that they're going to end it with a huge cliffhanger, which means that if for some reason Hank is shaking my computer, if for some reason that it doesn't get renewed for a second season, which I couldn't imagine, it would stink to have that big of a cliffhanger.
Well, again, so I'm pretty sure it's been confirmed that
That it's getting a second season.
no, not that it's getting a second
Oh,
season, but that season 1 is the lead up to
the
Spider-Man
movie.
and Doctor Strange.
Okay,
So
cool.
I think there will be a cliffhanger, but I think your concerns of the cliffhanger will be answered in,
One of
um,
the movies.
yeah.
Whichever movie comes first, rather.
Wait, why do you think they
Dope.
are all sword members inside the bubble? No, 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 no. I think she found a town and took over it. I think one of the
I
people in the
don't
town.
agree.
You don't agree?
Everybody no, everybody that they had identified were sword agents. They identified 4 people and they were all sword agents.
I don't think they were.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Nuh-uh.
positive. At least the first 2 were sword agents.
I don't think any of them were sword agents. I think they had sword
You're wrong.
dossiers on them.
Oh, that's possible. Are we now all just Googling this to see who's right?
No, I'm actually I've got my tablet here. I'm opening up Disney Plus on it and I'm pulling up when they
The screen grab.
yeah. Um
Hank, you're licking my hand right
because
by the
yeah,
camera.
I'm fairly confident that they weren't all sword agents. That would have been a much bigger deal.
I thought it was a big deal. So, I mean, that's also, what everybody got out of it. So maybe I was looking too hard into it. Also, I watched, the last episode last night at like 11:30.
Yeah, you texted me pretty late about it. Okay, here we go.
I was like asleep all day.
Okay.
And
Well, so they're sword sheets that have their pictures on them and filled in information about them.
I thought that meant that they were all sword agents.
Okay. We're gonna now pull it up on the computer. I think I am right. I'm also happy
You
that Kat
always
Dennings is
think you're
back.
right.
Well,
What?
so does Chat. Chat thinks I'm right too.
Okay, well, just once somebody's gonna
So the
agree with
sheets
me.
say when they were on screen. And yeah, so yeah, I think it's their information on the people, not necessarily
Through shield.
that they
Or
are through Shield.
through sword. Um, but I mean, even so then, just the awareness that the characters ended up having in that last episode of the 70s with the neighbors talking.
Uh-huh. God, I really
Also
need this to. Oh, wait for it.
potentially speaks to
Agent Wu.
something more than just a town that she happened to take over.
Okay. Yeah, so they're just. I'm fairly certain.
Hey, boo-boo.
Yeah, so like they've got information on there about like what they're doing in the movie. And they have like a part of the sheet that says occupation and employer, and some of them are blank, some of them have things written on it.
Okay.
So,
Fine, I concede.
boom, I'm right. They also all have New Jersey licenses. Yes, because Westview is in New Jersey.
Don't be a butt. They all sided with you.
I know. I'm sorry. Look, okay. My sister told me that I was being mean to you, chat, so I apologize. But yeah, so definitely. I don't hate you, Talk. Definitely going to
No.
be interesting. I'm really looking forward to the second half of this show.
Yeah.
It's
I'm just
gonna,
so happy that Darcy came back.
yeah. Darcy, she's great. She is absolutely amazing.
And I think her being paired up with Wu is fantastic.
That is true. You do like craft singles, Knock. So,
Okay.
but yeah, no, it's been good. It's
I
been
also have
good.
a feeling that Vision is going to be the one
Look at
to
the doggo. Lift the doggo up. Lift the
go, go,
doggo up
go, go,
high. Look
go.
at him.
Woo!
That's
He's
the
I don't
Hankamus.
like the camera.
Yeah. Hank, named after
Hank McCoy!
an
Beast!
X-Men character. Yep.
Because he's Beast!
Yep.
I keep joking around that I now need to get a St. Bernard named Beast, so that way it's literally like
Hank
pre.
McCoy and Beast.
Yeah!
I dig it. I'm sure mom and dad would really love you having a Saint Bernard. I'm sure your Airstream
Airstream?
would really love you having not only a corgi but a Saint Bernard.
I don't think Hank would like another dog, let alone one that's like 500 times his size.
Yeah, no kidding. But give WandaVision a quick score out of 10. Mid-season.
Yeah. I was like, well, it's only mid-season, so I'm gonna
Mid-season
give it
score.
a 7 because I'm interested, I'm captivated, but there's still very many ways that I could end up not enjoying it. And
Yeah.
I do really enjoy all of the characters that they brought back. So I think I'm just gonna stick with 7 because it's a safe one, but it's on the higher side.
I'm gonna give it an 8, just because even if it weren't comic book related, the cinematography of it is phenomenal.
I would love to read a comic in the Marvel universe that
That's
ends
like
up
this.
being okay, well then again, like yeah, which maybe also I really like this because I also really like Bombshells from the DC universe, which
Uh-huh.
is kind of like the new time period type of element. However, it is in color. It is not in black and white.
I agree, and I think like
Boom.
Knock brought it up in chat, but that the dead vision that
Yeah, it
walks
was
it.
terrifying,
Oh
but
my
beautiful.
gosh, it was. Yeah, that is the best way to describe it. Terrifying but beautiful.
Yeah. I will say, okay, I will also ask this. Do you then think that Wanda is the one who's censoring the television feed?
Yes. But I
So
also I
she
don't
wants it then to be viewed?
I don't think that she's doing that part on purpose.
Okay.
I think this is
I think that there's somewhat of an exterior,
like a cry for help kind of thing.
even if it's either a cry for help thing, or I'm more so wondering if it could be like almost Hydra piggybacking off of this and trying to kind of gauge or get like power sifting somewhat, and is just taking bits and pieces out so that way nobody will be interested to kind of fix it. I think that could be an interesting extra element to the show. Not
See,
necessarily that I think it
what
will happen, I just
what
think it would be
I'm
interesting.
the censoring thing, what I'm thinking is that it's when Wanda alters the timeline again.
Well, no, I agree
And
with
that
that. I'm just
it's just
wondering if there's
like that's a byproduct of her altering the time.
yeah,
But I
I
don't
do agree with that. I just think it would be cool if there's an extra element of
someone's doing this to her.
not just of someone doing this to her, but of
Mhm.
dire circumstance, because, I mean, at the moment, nothing bad is happening aside from this entire town being in, like,
I'm trying to think of like
what is that TV show?
who would be interesting
Twilight Zone, like the
to
Twilight Zone.
yeah, but who would because I don't think Hydra would be interesting. I don't think that's what the Marvel Cinematic Universe would do. I don't think they'd just bring Hydra back. MODOK maybe.
It would be
Knock
super
plays
cool.
brings up MODOK. Like
Mhm.
bringing what was that MODOK wasn't AIM Industries, was it? Was he? I can't remember if
You're
MODOK is
asking
AIM
me.
or if MODOK is Raxon. Roxxon. I think he was AIM.
That adding, another character to make the circumstances a little bit more dire
No,
could
I
be more
agree.
fun
I
or
agree.
interesting.
I think that's reasonable too.
Um,
I, see, but
and
now I have to sit
siphoning
here and I have to wonder who the hell it is.
and I think that siphoning power from the bubble would be an easy way to bring it in.
AIM was MODOK. Thank you, Knock. Yeah,
So, that I think was more so what I was trying to get out of it. Not necessarily that
as
Hydra is doing this or that anybody is doing this to her, just that kind of element would make it a little bit more I don't wanna say more engaging because it's an engaging show as is. That's just yeah.
yeah. I'm interested to see where it goes. 100%. I'm looking
Oh,
forward
yeah.
to it.
It comes out Fridays?
Fridays. Yep.
I never have watched it on a Friday, so that's why I'm like, I don't know.
Knox says, I feel like we are so content starved, we are reaching for anything. I think there's just been such a lull in content, and we're about to be absolutely inundated with a crap ton of content.
Slaughtered.
Because like we've got God, what we've got Hawkeye, um,
Loki.
Loki. This is the first Marvel since Endgame, right?
Mhm.
Yes. No. Um,
Spider-Man
Spider-Man: Far From
came
Home.
out after.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, so we've got WandaVision, we've got the Falcon and the Winter Soldier starting next month, actually.
That one will be fun. Or at least I hope it will be, because 'cause they're funny when they're on screen together.
Yeah. Um, we've got Black Widow coming out, the movie, but that takes place beforehand.
She's a little dead right now,
What?
because she's a little dead right now.
She is just a bit. We've got Loki coming out in May. We've got. Oh, this is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is coming out this year. I don't think I realized that. Um, What If is coming out this year. The Eternals is set to come out this year.
I still want them to
Hawkeye. What?
I still want them to do more with, like, X-Men, kind of like
Yeah.
Evolution and Wolverine and the X-Men, but
Well, I'm sure we'll get there. I'm sure we'll
I
get there.
know, but I want it to be that wholesome.
Hawkeye comes out late 2021. Miss Marvel is supposed to come out late 2021. And then
Hey,
the Spider-Man movie has a release date of 17 December.
and we should also just highlight, we have finished our first month of 2021.
We have finished our first month of 2021.
And that's amazing.
It is. But yeah, we've got a lot of content coming, and I think Anna and I are going to try to figure out ways to incorporate all of that content with what we're already doing. Maybe we'll do like one-off shows, or maybe at the same time that we do this. Maybe that's what we should do. Every Monday we spend the first like hour talking about our book,
Mhm.
and a second hour talking about the latest.
Has it been another hour? No, okay. I
No,
was
no,
like,
no.
"Wow."
But like, and it might not be a whole hour that we talk about it, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So real quick, Anna, where can the people find you on the internet?
Are we not gonna say what our next comic is?
Oh, yes. By the way, our next comic, chosen by yours truly, um, is going to be it's going to be Zatanna by Paul Dini, um, and it's going to be our DC book.
Woot!
Yeah, our DC book is going to be Zatanna. So it's
Wow, the cover kinda looks like a tarot card.
oh, I think that's the point. Considering it also says the magician on it.
Shut up. We'll continue.
Um, but yeah, so next Monday we are talking about Zatanna, the Paul Dini arc that was done. Um, so check that out and join us next week. Anna, where can they find you on the internet?
Really only Instagram. So I have 2 accounts. I have a personal account, which is Anna_Riddick, and I have a professional account for art stuff, which is A Riddick Designs.
Which, by the
Yeah.
way, the shading done on that desk, the Star Wars
Yeah.
desk, oh my god, it looks so
Yeah.
freaking good.
I gotta get good pictures, cough, cough, hint, hint, before it gets sent away to its owner. But more photos of the full piece is gonna be posted on and off throughout the next couple weeks.
And it's A Riddick Designs.
You're muted again.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
And of course, you guys can find me pretty much everywhere as It's Ben Pie. You're watching this on YouTube, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. If you're watching live on Twitch, you know, Amazon Prime gives you that free sub. You can go ahead and just. And of course, Twitter, all of that. Um, Guys, thank you so much for joining us for another issue of Sibling Rival-Read, the comic book club series that Anna and I do. Remember to keep your poll lists full for next week, and we shall catch you then. Bye.
Shalom-Aste. It's such a good word.
Okay.